So we just got some major One Piece news. Now, way back in August, 4 months ago at this point, I posted this TikTok on my page.
So imagine this guy shows up, they think it's Shanks, and he starts wreaking havoc on the island. And the Giant's god, Nika, is there to save the day.
I can't post a full TikTok here because there's music with it, but I'll link it in the description below. You can go check it out because I talk about, like the build up to that point in that video. As you can imagine, a lot of people are like no way this happens, but it looks like we might be trending in this direction at this point, because now in chapter 1134 we just got it confirmed that a person that looks basically exactly like Shanks has arrived in Elbaph, and he used one of the Gorosei summoning circles. Now that part of it is very interesting to me as well, because he didn't show up in a demonic transformation, yet he basically boom tubed in the same way the Gorosei do when they transform. And he's obviously a celestial dragon. Now, it's probably likely, as I talked about in that TikTok, that the guy in the silhouette is this guy. But another thing that's extremely likely is that the guy that was talking to the Gorosei in this scene right here is actually this guy as well. And people have been calling Shanks a rat for years, thinking that he went and talked to the Gorosei. I even thought, based on the assumptions we had, it's fine to assume that it was Shanks at the point, especially if he is a celestial dragon with ties to the Gorosei. It could make some sense. But now it seems, because this guy arrives in a hooded robe, that the guy that we've been seeing talking to the Gorosei during that period in 907 is actually Shanks' twin or relative or whoever this guy is. Now, when you put these two pictures side by side, it does make a lot of sense, because even when Shanks is looked at from that kind of perspective, you can still see the end of his scar. This guy, clearly you didn't see a scar, and there's some other slight changes that could be equated to paneling, but who knows. This opens up a whole other can of worms that I talked about in that TikTok I played at the beginning of the video, that Luffy might get the worst rude awakening of his career when he tries to run up to this guy, and maybe he thinks it's Shanks and he just like has a lapse in judgment moment, and then this guy just strikes him down. It's also even possible that this guy has done things in the world that people equate to it being Shanks doing it, and this guy is kind of giving Shanks that notoriety, which would be a whole other layer to this that could be super interesting. If this is the true villain of Elbaph, this is gonna be peak writing. Now, we don't know for sure if that's gonna happen. This guy, for all we know, could just pop into Elbaph, do whatever he came to do, and then dip out. We don't know what kind of mission he has, but we do know that Eam should be pretty pissed off right now about what transpired at Egghead. We saw that Garling was just appointed to become a new Gorosei member. He was the former Supreme Commander of the Holy Knights. Is this a situation where Eam got in league with Garling, appointed him up, and said, look, these guys have been slacking, Saturn's a failure, I need you to handle this problem for me, Joy Boy needs to be eradicated, so you send your son to go deal with it? Dude, this could be insanity, bro. If Garling believes that much in his son, that he could go take out Luffy, that'd be hype as hell. He might be sending this guy to finish the job that Saturn couldn't and the Gorosei couldn't. Now, the Holy Knights being mobilized is something that we've had a specific person talk about, and that was Dragon. Does that mean that Dragon might finally make his appearance in front of Luffy and having a fight in this arc as well? Because if he's tracking the movements of the Holy Knights, does he have a way of understanding that now one of the Holy Knights has moved? Especially if this guy's the new head honcho, the new Supreme Commander after Garling was just promoted to becoming a Gorosei. Does Dragon appear here in Elbaph to help fight against this guy? It'd be an interesting thing, to say the least. I don't know if that's going to be the case, though. I do think that this guy being Luffy's opponent in Elbaph is most plausible. Luffy takes him down, and maybe that's the beacon, the signal that Luffy defeated a Holy Knight or something. The Dragon hears that the Holy Knights have mobilized, and then he makes his move for the final war. That might be the cliffhanger, like at the end of Elbaph, but we shall see. We also see that there is somebody else that arrived with this guy, the fake Shanks, and thanks to Worst Gen here, we have some more insight into who that is. It is a girl, and maybe her name is Valkyrie because Redon posted a Valkyrie gif, but who knows. But she seems to also be a Holy Knight, so the plot thickens as far as all this goes. How the hell are they summoning with this circle? Are they directly tied to Eam just like the Gorosei? What is going on? I can't wait to find out. And in hindsight, looking back, I've talked about this a little bit on my live streams, but I never made a video on it, unfortunately. Looking back, when Dragon says things get serious when the Holy Knights get mobilized, you have to understand, like, that's kind of owed a foreshadowing that a Holy Knight's going to be mobilized very soon. There's always some kind of world government presence in all the arcs that we go in. It's usually like an admiral having some kind of presence on the island, but we basically had all the admirals have a presence so far, with Fujitora and Dressrosa, Green Bull showing up at the end of Wano. Then you have, of course, Kizaru and Egghead, you know, save for Akainu actually showing up somewhere, but that's way too serious for right now. A Holy Knight being mobilized right now makes a ton of sense, especially given that Dragon just said this, and the first person to encounter them, like, it's gonna be Luffy Joyboy, the person that Eam hates, the person that Eam wants to take out. So that writing's kind of been on the wall. What I do think, and I'll go out on a limb right now to kind of just give my prediction on where this goes at the end of this arc, I think that whether this guy's the main villain or not, and Luffy defeats this guy, whoever Luffy defeats in Elbaph, I do think that at the end of this, we've already had this foreshadowing as well, that the Giants worship Nika, the sun god, and now Luffy already has the new warrior giant pirates in his fleet. I think that by the end of Elbaph, all the Giants are going to pledge servitude to Luffy, whether he wants it or not. And Big Mom's dream is unironically going to be fulfilled by Luffy, and Luffy is going to command the legions of Elbaph, the strongest, the mightiest warrior nation, to fight for him by the end of Elbaph. And I think that that's going to be like the thing that shakes the shit out of the world by the end of Elbaph, that Yonko Luffy has the Giants backing him full force. And I've seen some theories that people think that Loki is actually going to be, you know, the last person to join the Straw Hats. And at first I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, they don't have a ship big enough to hold him. But it might not necessarily be a situation where he joins the actual crew. He might just be like leading the fleet, because Luffy and Loki have had dynamics that aren't usual for an antagonistic role for Luffy. Luffy is going out on a limb to make a deal with him, going to free him, like he was chilling on his leg and everything. So I think that they're probably going to be friendly toward the end of the arc. I think Loki's probably slightly misunderstood. We'll have to see. Maybe he's just a vile villain. Maybe he'll end up fighting Zoro or something if this guy fights Luffy. But you have to understand that they've talked about numerous times now that Luffy can kind of sense somebody's, not necessarily morality, but somebody's kind of intentions, like whether it's like somebody evil that Luffy's gonna hate immediately, or if it's somebody that's kind of chill. And I don't know if Luffy's gonna be freeing somebody that is just gonna be so easily turning on him and being an antagonist, despite what it looks like. And when you look at Loki's goal, Ragnarok, the end of the world, bring about Ragnarok, it might not be a literal sense. It might be like he's gonna bring about the end of the world government regime, like he's gonna bring about that following Luffy. So those two dreams can be fulfilled together. Luffy becoming Pirate King and Loki bringing about Ragnarok, and in the known world constructs. So that's a possibility, but I wouldn't be surprised. All I'm saying, I'm not predicting that necessarily Loki has to join, but I do think that whether Loki joins or not, the Giants will be behind Luffy fully. And if Loki is an ally to Luffy by the end, I also won't be surprised. That's my bold prediction for Elbaph. Let me know what you guys think about that.